What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my tiny garage. My name's Jared, and outside of my garage today we have a Cub Cadet 1529. Customer gave me a call to see if I had some time to look at this, and of course I said yes. What got this call started here on this one is that we're having some throttle cable issues. It seems like the throttle cable's broke. I haven't quite investigated it enough yet, but it doesn't do anything else than idle, so I'm pretty sure that's where we're heading. There's some other problems here that while we have the machine, we're going to check into and address. We're having some steering issues, some transmission and braking issues, and it just needs a real good service and going over. So I'm still waiting on some parts to come in for the main tractor unit, but I do have some stuff here for the mower deck. So I think in this video, we're going to start with the mower deck. So we're going to get that pulled off, taken into the shop, go over it, do some service to it, and then we'll follow up probably with at least another part or two, depending how it goes, of the tractor itself. So let's go ahead and hop down here on the ground and see if we can't get this mower deck pulled out. Looks like we got two pins underneath and everything should slip off. So I'm gonna go ahead and lower the deck down flat with the ground, and then we'll have a little look-see under here. So it should slide right out of those brackets here on the front. We got a belt up here, and then back under here, we just got two pull pins on each side. So let's see if we can't, there's one side. Let's go around and get the other side. This side of the deck is still wanting to lay on the ground, so I'm gonna try to put some blocks of wood under here. Let's see if we can relieve some pressure. Gotta pull that out. It's pretty stuck though. See if that's enough to do it. There we go. There we got it. Okay, so we got that popped out. Now we should be able to take out our blocks. Get this let back down. Now, go over here to this side. See if we can't slide the mower deck forward a little bit and get it popped out of the front here. Perfect. There we go. Just slide our belt here off the bottom and out from underneath there. And there we go. Should be ready to slide the deck out now. We'll pull up our arms to get them up and out of the way. So we should be able to slide this right out of here then. Hopefully. Without it getting stuck on everything. Oh yeah. It's gonna come right out of there. Wonderful. There we go. Okay. Let's get this in the shop and take a little closer look at it. First place I'd like to start is by getting this belt off of here. So let's go ahead and get this guard off. And we'll have a little look-see at the belt. I have the bottom belt here. We are going to replace that. This one here's getting kind of worn and a little bit tore up. I'll show you guys a little bit closer, but I don't have the top one here yet. I think we're going to replace that one too while we're here. We got them breaking off, so that's always wonderful. If I had to venture, this one here is probably going to do the same thing, where we're going to have to let it rip anyway. Oh, that one there came out. Okay, well we got 2 out of 3, so I'll take that. here's our top belt, and what I'm looking at is some wear like that. There's some pretty decent wear on this side of the belt. And although it isn't terrible, I think while we're here and while we have it apart and everything, we will just go ahead and replace this one as well. It's not... It is a little dry cracked, I suppose, but it's not real crazy. But while we're here doing it for the customer asked if we saw anything crazy or that would need replaced within a reasonable time frame. They just said to go ahead and do it. So we're just going to go ahead and replace this top belt. I'll have to get that coming. I don't have that here at the minute, but I do have this belt. So let's see if we can pop this one off, and then I'd like to check all the spindle bearings and your tension pulley here, and of course we'll sharpen the blades and all that. So see if we can get this belt pulled off of here reasonably. Very good. Yeah, so we can see here that this one's tore up a little bit. So we're just going to replace them both while we're here. That way we don't have to question anything. Alright. Just kind of spinning our pulleys around. Just listening for any kind of excessive grinding or... Well, it sounds like it needs some grease. It doesn't sound like it's bad, but it definitely needs some grease. Now that definitely doesn't sound good. We'll probably pull that off and check that out. That sounds like it might need replaced there. That bearing definitely doesn't sound the best at all. How about this side? Yeah, that's nice and smooth sounding. This one has a little noise, but I believe some grease is going to quiet that down. And then the same for this one. It's not real loose or anything like that I would be concerned about. This one's concerning, but yeah, let's see if we can get some grease into these and see if they dress up a little bit for us. See if these will take grease or if they'll give us some trouble. Let's find out. They're actually taking grease, it would seem. Alright, well, that took a fair amount. It's feeling pretty good. Happy with that. Always wipe your grease fittings off. They will attract dirt and get clogged up otherwise. For our main contender here, let's see what we can do with this guy. Well, it's taking grease. Guys, hear that? It's quieting right down. I think we're going to be alright with this one. She was getting close. She probably wouldn't have lasted too much longer that way, but... Oh, yeah. just as good as the rest of them. Nice. Wonderful. All right, last one over here. Should be real easy. It's good to go. No problems there at all. Alright, let's zip this one off of here. And I think we better replace that the way that sounds. So let's get that pulled off. Does this have a bottom bolt on it? Yeah, sure does. Oh yeah, that is it's all kinds of grumbling, not very happy. There's a bearing number on it. I have to investigate this here. Usually you just buy them as the pulley with the bearing already in it. It's a seal bearing, you don't replace it. But we might be able to get away with pressing out this bearing and just pressing in a new bearing. Not sure. Sometimes it can go both ways. And so I'll have to do some research on that. Don't have that here. Wasn't expecting to run into that one. But that's okay. We will get this on order. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and continue and check out the blades and get them sharpened here. Looks like they got the big bolts on here. 1 1/8 is what it looks like it's going to be. See if we can get this pulled off of here. There we go. I think where I'm going to go with this one here, I don't know if you can hear it. Spinning things from this direction, it still has what I would call a little bit of a bearing growl. So I'm kind of tempted here to get into this. You cannot get these spindles anymore, OEM from Cub Cadet. They have, of course, discontinued them. But the way this looks here, it looks like this should be rebuildable. So I'm considering getting down in here to this one and see maybe what we find. Let's pop this one off here and just see what it looks like. Yeah, that just sounds like an unhappy bearing in there. I'm gonna do a little bit more research. I'm probably gonna pause this video here. It'll continue on your end. It'll go straight through. But for me here, I'm gonna pause and I'm going to investigate things here a little bit further. I'm gonna check out that idler pulley, see if we can't get a bearing for that or another pulley altogether. And I'm gonna investigate this here too and see if it looks like I can rebuild something like this, or if I have to figure out a different option. But that is I don't feel good about that. It might last a little bit longer yet, but it is rather growly, even with fresh grease. You can just hear it in there. So I might do some digging here and see what I come up with, and I'll be back here in just a second for you guys with most likely what we come up with, and hopefully be able to finish this deck off then. Alright, it has been a few days here, and we got some updates. So let's hop in here to the shop and take a look at the mess. We went to war, feels like, over this spindle, and it's one of them things where one thing seemed to have just led to another. We did get it apart. Here's what we got. So I kind of already sort of took it apart here a little bit. The shaft and pulley just simply pulled out, which is great. So we started having a look in here at what we had going on. So we started out with an oil seal up top here. We pulled that out, and then we get to our bearing, and as you can see, that's probably about the closest I can say I've seen a bearing almost blow out and give way, but not quite. I mean, that's about as close as you can get to a bearing blowing apart. So my ears were definitely correct on this, that this bearing was for sure on its way out. So I was able to get the bearings and the races. So there's races that are pressed in here. This is actually double side, so there's a little spacer down in here. It's loose. That pulls out, and then there's another bearing and seal on the other side, so it's a double bearing seal type thing. So we got them here. We should be able to repair this. And the other trouble that we had in the meantime was we had two bolts that had broken off, and one of them we were able to drill out and send the tap down through, and we're all good on that one. So we got 3 holes there that we're all good on. The fourth one here gave me some real issues. That one, well, long story short, I suppose, I thought it'd be quick and easy to use a extractor, the kind where you screw them in reverse. Something looks like this, and they would just back the bolt out. Well, it would have been nice if that would have happened, but that is not what happened, and it ended up breaking off in the bolt. And for those of you that know, these extractors are hardened steel, so anything but a diamond tip drill bit is not going to get that out. So, of course, that really set me back there, that the other front part of this where I was working on it. I ended up having to use my Dremel and a bunch of sanding bits to gouge out the broken extractor. And once the broken extractor was out, we were able to then drill out the bolt. So I should have just started out with drilling it out. I thought I was going to be quick, and it ended up not being quick. So is what it is. Of course, in that whole process, we ended up messing up the hole a little bit. So we had to drill it out to a bigger size and then re-tap it. So what I am going to do, because I don't like how big that is, I am going to put a Heli-Coil insert in here, and then we can neck it back down to a small size bolt. So we should be fine with that. What happens is these are aluminum and they use steel bolts, and they just oxidize fast, and that's basically what we got into. So hopefully we should be able to repair this. Like I said, I got stuff here. I had to wait a few days to get parts here to do this, so hopefully we can press out these races easy enough and get this rebuilt. So that's been a job for sure. And I guess I got the belt that we needed, hopefully, for the other portion of that. And then I did get a new pulley. This is the old pulley here. I did get a new pulley, and then I also got bearings. I'm going to try to do the bearings first and see if we can't press that out. It would end up being just a little bit cheaper for the customer, and I really don't see anything wrong with this pulley. So we're going to try that, but while I was there, I can easily return it if we don't need it. I just figured I'd go ahead and grab a pulley. That way, in case it just doesn't work, it doesn't press out, then we can kind of go from there. These really aren't made to be serviceable per se. You can service them, but they're not exactly designed that way. So we'll see what we can butcher up, basically, is how that's going to go. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive into taking some measurements, I guess, on our bearings, or I guess our races, I should say. And so here's our races. So we'll pop that open and make sure that our depths and things are going to be the same between the old and the new before we start pressing too much out of here, to just make sure everything's gonna work. So let's go ahead and grab the calipers. I'll set you guys up on a tripod here and see if we can't measure some things up before we start pressing. And then I guess from there as well, we'll probably go ahead and get this Heli-Coil started in there, because I'm going to want to Loctite that in. So I'm going to want to give that some time to set up. So I might start with that, and then see about doing those races. I have to, if they are going to work, I'm going to end up throwing the races in the freezer to try to shrink them down so we don't have to press as hard, pressing them into place. So yeah, let's go ahead and get set up with the camera. I guess first, outrunning myself here, I'm going to need to clean this place up so that I can actually walk. So we're going to just snap my fingers and clean everything up, and then we'll jump into measuring races and go from there. Got to the shop cleaned up. I can actually walk around here and work again. You know how that goes when you get into some job like that. Sometimes you can end up with 2,000 tools out, and before you know it, you're falling and everything else. And as you know, in a tiny garage, you got to stay on top of it. Clean as you go, like a pro. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into some spindle repair. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at our bearing. Kind of match things up. Everything, this one here looks like it is identical. So the bearing looks good. How's our seal look? Seal looks good through the bag. Just trying to make sure they look generally close before I go and open them. Take our new bearing race. This won't be perfectly accurate, Measure the top side. Looks like we got 39.45 millimeters. And if I stick our caliper down in here on the same general area, we got 39.7 millimeters. So that is close enough. No doubt this has been worn. As the bearings you can see, now, I don't have a very good way to measure this, so pardon me, this will not be scientific in the least. But if I kind of go down to the inside there, looks like our rough measurement is around 11.4. And if I do it this way, measurement here is 12.5. So I'm going to say that that is going to be close enough. I am sure I'm not measuring it correctly. I just can't really get in there to measure it. So I'm going to say that we are good to go on that. So I'm going to stick these bearing races in the freezer then to make things a little bit easier on the pressing in process. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get our Heli-Coil in here. So we should have it tapped out to bring it to a 3/8 measurement, 3/8 bolt size. Yep, that's going to be correct. So if you're not familiar with how these work, you drill out your hole to a certain size and then you retap your threads. And once your threads are retapped, you put in this healing coil, and it is supposed to bring it down to a more workable size. So for example, here's what I'm working with. Find a bolt that matches up. So right here is our Heli-Coil, threading onto that. And here's the bolt size that it's currently tapped out for. So it's currently tapped out for a 7/16, but we're going to be able to take it down to a 3/8. Now, could we thread the 7/16 in there? Yes, we sure can. But I do have to drill the hole, the hole on the mower deck bigger to accommodate this bolt. So there's no sense in me taking out more material than what I need. So we're going to just simply put in this Heli-Coil and bring it down to this measurement size. So to get this kind of started, I am going to put some Loctite on it. There we go. So we got it in the tool. So I'm just going to simply run this in the Loctite. Get a nice good amount on there. Whoops. Gonna lose it. We're gonna take it in here. And we're gonna thread it into that tapped hole. Don't want to go too far with it, but we want it down below the surface just a little bit. We don't want it to interfere with our mating surface across there. So I'm pretty happy with that. I might go just a touch bit more. Something like that. Looks pretty good to me. I got a little bit down in there. Let me see if I can get that out of the threads. Don't need any in there right now. There you go. So as you can see, now we've reduced the size down so that we should be able to accommodate a smaller size bolt. So I'll have to wait for that Loctite to set up. And then what you're supposed to do then from there is that tab that you use to thread this in, you're supposed to then take this and break that tab out. So now your bolt can go the entire way through. You've just now healed your threads. Alright, so I'm good with that for now. That's going to set up as we're working on the rest of this. I'm going to go throw these races in the freezer, and then we'll probably hop out there to my press and start working at getting these races out. I guess before we head out there to the press, I had kind of forgotten that I didn't take out the other side to this spindle. So we got a spacer in there that pops out. Let's see if we can't get this spun around to the other side. So we got a seal over here. That needs to pop out. And then a bearing that'll need to come out of this side too before we can do much with the press. How's this bearing look? Well, this one here looks like it might be in a lot better shape. Yeah, this one here's in a lot better shape. A little stiff maybe, but it's definitely not worn around like this one was. That one was clearly going out. Obviously we're going to replace them both, but I kind of wasn't sure what to expect there, to be honest. I wasn't sure if it would be blown out just like the other one, or how it would look, so now we know. Get as much grease cleaned out of here as we can. There we go. It's decent. We may be able to drive this out of there with a punch. As a matter of fact, that looks like that may end up being the first thing to try. We may not have to use the press to get them out. The way this looks, I might be able to use the punch, or a punch, and kind of drive them out. I might be willing to try that first, because getting them out with a press might prove to be a little rather interesting, I suppose. I would say before we get too carried away, let's just see if I can't tap this out with a punch in the vise. There isn't much of a lip there, but it may be enough. See if we can get it to move. slowly working things back and forth. Thing's about ready to pop out here, actually. There it goes. There we go. There is one race. How hot is this thing? Alright, well there's one out of there. Wonder if we can manage to do the other side or not. The other side wants to be a little bit more tricky. I am not able to get as nice of a grip on it. I don't have as much to work with, and I don't want to grab onto the outside and risk cracking the aluminum, because of course we can't get these spindle housings anymore. They are discontinued. If we didn't get that to move, I didn't know what we were going to do, because they don't give you enough lip on here to, there we go. There's that one. They don't give you enough lip on here to accommodate using a press from the inside. They don't, you can't really press it out. They just don't give you enough to do that. So let's let this cool down here just a little bit so that I can touch it again. We'll get in here and clean up our mess and make sure there's no burrs or nicks or anything like that. And then we can go ahead and inset our new races. So I don't know how well y'all can see this. And grab a light. Might help out a little bit. So we can see on this one here, this would be our upper one. Everything looks pretty good. There's still, right there you can see the machining marks. Hopefully you can see that, they're on it. And this one here looks really good. I don't really think needs much attention. This one, on the other hand, looks like we can see where the race was wanting to spin a little bit. I don't know if you can see that there or not. Hopefully you can. See, it's kind of scuffed up there a little bit. So what I'm going to do, ideally when you'd see that, you would want to replace the spindle. If this was steel, you could, in theory, have that welded up and then put it on a lathe and rebore it out. But I don't really have that option here, and these are aluminum, so they're kind of soft to begin with. So the best I feel that I can kind of do here for this poor thing is put a new race in it, which the tolerance on it will be, of course, you know, a little bit tighter than the used one, and hope that that will be enough to keep it from spinning. And I feel that a new bearing should hopefully help that as well. So I'm just going to take some very, very fine grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to go across it and try to get some of the ridges down. And again, it's aluminum, so I don't need much. I don't need to press very much. Just gonna knock down all the ridges in there. Well, you can see what I kind of did. So I just real gently went around there and sanded those down just a little bit, so there's nothing sticking up that's going to grab. Checking over here on this side, there's a little bit of a nick right here from my punch. So I'm going to go around them. I'm not touching where the race is going to be. This would be like the inner lip where the race would meet a little bit. There we go. So I'm just feeling around with my finger. Feels pretty good. This definitely should have been caught a while ago. Not very happy to see that, but like I said, there really isn't much that I can do for it right now. There was some aftermarket spindle options, but they were pretty expensive, and compared to the price of the for what I got here with the new race and stuff, we're gonna try that and just see if that'll work. If worst is worse and we have to put it, you know, a whole aftermarket type assembly on, if that's what we got to do, then that's what we'll have to do. But I'm willing to try this. It doesn't look hateful. I mean, I'm not super happy with it, so to speak, but I think it still has some life left in it. So I'm gonna go blow this out with the air gun, make sure all the shavings are out, and at that point we should be ready to press these bearings in, or I'm sorry, the races in to this spindle. You got our press set up here. We're outside of the shop, underneath my overhang of the shop. Had to move it all outside to make room in the shop for what I needed to do. Alright, so we got flat surfaces. My press on a little bit of an angle here, but we're flat to our plane, so we'll be alright. So then I got a kit over here of dies, driver set dies, different sizes, and I'll post a link down below if you're interested in that. So I found a size that is going to get us in about as snug as I can get it. So you can see that's pretty snug, so we should be pushing pretty well on just the race. So we'll try that for now and see how that goes. Alright, now I brought my torch out. I'm going to try to make this as easy on the aluminum as I can. I don't want to stress it. So what I'm going to do, of course, we've already put our races in the freezer to cool them down and constrict them up. So I'm going to go inside and get one of them here, and what I'm going to do is heat up the aluminum a little bit to make that hot. Not too hot, we don't want to crack it, but we want a little bit of warmth to expand that a little bit, and then we're going to drop in the cold race, which will be constricted, and hopefully it'll just go right down in there without much pressure. That's ideally what I want. I don't want to have to press very much because I do not want to risk cracking this housing if I can at all do so. So let me run in here and grab one out of the freezer, and then we'll see what kind of damage we can cause here. Got our bearing race out of the freezer. We're going to hit this with a little bit of heat. Okay. Take our brand new bearing race. Make sure we put our thick side down the correct way we want it. Drop it in there like such. All right. And now as gently as we can, we start pressing that down in. Got it going the right way. Yeah, we got it going the right way. Just want to double check. Don't feel like driving this back out. Alright, we got a little bit of pressure on it. Should be flat. And I'm just going to let it sit there with some pressure on it as things kind of heat and contract there a little bit, just to keep it in place. And as soon as I feel that's satisfactory, we'll take it out and inspect it and see what we got. See how we did. that. Nice brand new race. Look on the inside, make sure there's no gap, that it's in straight. Would appear to me that it is in straight. I'm going to say that's about as successful as I think we can get. Alright, let me go grab the other one from the freezer and we'll do the other side. Okay, thick side down. Well, there almost wants to drop right into place. That's good. The less stress I put this under, the better. A nice check. Yep, got it going the correct direction. Here we go for our press. Okay, I can see I'm not centered where I want to be on our push piece, so I'm going to reset that. Here we go. Continue on. Okay. Well, that's that sit under pressure. As a matter of fact, I might back it off and readjust it a little more into the center. Something a little bit more along those lines. I'd like to double check that. Seems like it wants to push further. Just want to make sure. Yeah. So we can go a little bit further. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Seemed like it was still wanting to go, so I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't curling our aluminum or anything like our edge. This is a 20-ton press, so I don't want to. I could probably easily send this thing right through the bottom if I wasn't careful. So make sure we get this real nice and centered on here. Okay, here we go. Okay. Alright, I feel like I hit bottom there. Let's take it off and inspect that. I just want to make sure. Yeah, I don't see any gap. Seems to be set, so while things cool off and neutralize, we'll put some pressure on it again and let it sit there for a minute like that. There we go. Okay, we'll let that sit there for a minute with pressure, and then we'll take it back inside, and we should be ready to reassemble this, I would say. So while I'm here, I would like to move on and address this pulley. So I'm going to try to just replace the bearing in here. And it looks like what we got is just a very simple Timken bearing, a 6203-2 Robert Sierra Timken bearing. And we have like this little center bushing that's kind of separate and pressed into the bearing. So here's my theory of going about doing this. I put a little red mark here, a little red X, on the side that protrudes of that bushing. So one side's flat, one side protrudes. That way in case it matters, it looks like the offset is the same, but I'm just, yeah, that's how I do it. So I think the best thing to do here is I got some sockets that will fit right around that bushing very nicely. So what I think I'm going to try to do first is put it like this and see, do we have, we do. Gonna see if I can't press out that center bushing first and get that kind of out of our way, and then we can just push out the bearing hopefully, and then when we reassemble it, in my mind, we just do the reverse. So while it's flat on the table, we can press this bushing in flat and then press the bearing into the pulley. I don't know if it's going to work, but I figure it's worth a try. Like I said, I got a brand new pulley here if I end up ruining this one, but I'd like to give it a shot and just see what happens. Now that's a fair amount of pressure. Is there anything happening? Well, we're definitely pushing out our insert. So far I'd say we're successful. So I guess we'll just keep going. Yeah. Now we're just pushing the whole bearing out. Yeah. So yeah, we just managed to push the whole bearing assembly out, which is okay, but it's not coming out straight. So let's do something like this. Something like that. And we'll just finish pushing our bearing out and then see if we can't get that insert out separately from everything else. We'll just finish, yeah, there we go. We'll just drop the bearing right out of there. So it looks like it was crimped in there, which is sort of what I was saying there earlier about these aren't really known to be serviceable. So I'm interested to see where this goes from here, but we're going to have to try to recrimp that. If you see what I mean, how this side has a crimp to keep that bearing in place, this side would also have a crimp. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to replicate that. We may just have to replace it with the other pulley, but honestly, for trial and error here, I'm willing to try. So I guess you guys are along for the ride here on that. So let's focus on seeing if we can't finish what we started and push this insert out of there. Well, we managed to break things. We did manage to do that. I don't know. I think at this point, our best bet might just be take the angle grinder and cut that apart. Let me just do that quick and resume here in just a second. Well, I managed to get our little spacer bushing thing out. So I guess the real test here is this going to work? I feel that it probably will, in a way, but I am not so sure about that crimp, to be fair. So we got our brand new bearing. It's gonna, supposedly, yeah, it'll press in, it'll start. Just gotta get this into the center of the bearing. I think the easiest way to do that probably is just simply use a flat piece of steel and just push it in while everything's pushing flat. So I'm gonna have to drop down my table to do that. Okay. Well, I guess here goes nothing in a way. We either ruin the bearing or this will work. So I guess let's see which happens. Now it's actually going in there super easy so far. Well, that's seated in there. It actually went in there really easy. And our bearing certainly is not compromised at all. Well, maybe we do have hope here. Okay, so now we gotta do the reverse. So my big socket fits around the flange, which is what we need. And our red dot is up, so that means our piece goes up. Now we don't want to push there, we want to push on the outside. So let me go see if I have a little bit bigger of a socket to push around on the outside of the race. Managed to find a socket that represents the outer bearing race a little bit better. So we should be ready to drive it. We got our flange facing up, the red mark is right there. So we're going the right direction. So I guess nothing left to do but kind of just send it home. I may put a little round spacer up there to help center it on the top of that socket. Just in case the top of the socket is a little concave or such. We'll just take it real easy and push that bearing right on into there. Well, it just dropped on in. Okay, I feel like there's a little bit of resistance, so I don't want to blow it out the other side, knowing that it's just a little rolled edge, so I want to be careful that I don't go too far. Looks like we can go just a little bit further yet. It's not quite set down. Looks like our socket's gonna get stuck as well, so I'll have to figure that out, but here at the minute, let's just finish setting this down in. Here we go. See how that looks. Could be just a little bit more there, it looks like. There we go. I felt that backside sit down like it needed to. How's that look? perfect. No gap in there at all. Nice and straight. Alright, let me go beat this socket out of here, and then we'll see what we got on the other side as far as this rolled edge is concerned. Okay, so what I've done here is I have popped out that bushing again. It actually came out pretty easy. It wasn't rusted in place. So I kind of started to pre-peen over this edge to roll it back over. So what I'm going to try to do is use a spacer on the bottom to keep things nice and straight, and then see if I can't use the same kind of pushing spacer on the top to kind of press it. And since I already have it started on a rollover, it may just work and kind of crimp itself over. I'm going to try it. No guarantees it'll work, but that's kind of where this whole thing's been going anyway. So let's see. See what we can do. Okay, so I'm going to put our flat spacer on the bottom. Make sure that's on there real nice. Actually, I can take this up a little bit more. Make sure that's on there straight. I'm just going to take one of those. Something like that. And press on it. See what happens. Let me back it out. See if that did anything. Yeah. Yeah, that crimped it over. That definitely crimped it over. I think we can go a little bit more yet. It's not quite perfectly even, but it is working. Let me put just a little bit bigger spacer on, perhaps. Spread that out just a little bit more. See if we can't get it to roll a little better. But to be honest, so far it looks like it's working remarkably, actually pretty well. Yeah, that crimped it over. It crimped it over pretty nice. Not quite as nice as the factory edge, but it did work. All right. Give her just a little bit more. It's nice and smooth. It's crimped in there nice and tight. I don't know, I'm pretty happy with that. So we should be able to use our bottom. Actually, I'm gonna have to get one a little bit smaller. Let's see, what do we got? We need one that goes inside to support the bearing. I don't need much pressure. There, that should work. It's not going to take much pressure to push this insert back in. It came out of there really easy. You just do this, just something to had a little support to it. There we go. It's not going to take much at all. I can almost slide it in with my fingers, so I'm not too worried about pressing on it the way I am. Should be all right. There we go. That's seated in. There we go. Well, I would say we successfully did it. That should last, no problems there at all. We just have to make sure it runs straight and true. But I certainly did my best to get it straight, so let's see how we did when we put it all back together. Alright, let's hop back in the shop and get our main spindle, I guess, kind of put back together, and bearings in and all that. Back in the shop, you can see it here, I have wrote on it up or pulley, which means this side is going to be the side that gets the pulley, so I don't want to mix them up, so I want to remember which direction is which. So I guess we'll start with this side. We're just going to go back and ensure, looking in there, that it is seated, and by all accounts both of them, as far as I can tell, are seated. Alright. So we got our new bearing, fits in there like that, and then our seal will get driven in right behind that. So first, the first thing to do is pack our bearing. So I'm going to take some grease out of my grease gun that I'm going to be using in this bearing to finally grease it. So we're using the same grease. I'm going to take the bearing, so I'm going to shove it in the back of those bearings. Back in the back there. Turn it and get it all worked into it. You can get a little bit more. I really want to push and smash it into the back of that bearing. We really want to make sure that bearing is packed as full as we can get it back there. Hopefully that was actually on camera. I don't know. Sorry about that. Got a little into my thing there. I want to make sure that it's all pushed into that bearing as much as we can get it. And once we're satisfied with how well we feel we did, add a little bit of grease there to the inside of the race. Drop our bearing in there. Get our messy gloves off. We'll take our seal. Of course, our seal has a lip on it. So you can see it kind of has a ramp going this direction. This side it's flat. So the way the seals came out of here, they came out of here this direction. So if that's how they came from factory, then I suppose that's how we'll put them back in. Usually, you would put them the other way, as the grease would pump out. It would expand the seal so that your grease wouldn't squirt out through the shaft, but that's certainly not the way they came out of there. Let me just double check the ones that are still on it and make sure that is the way they are showing. Let me look here real quick. Yeah, that's the way they got them all. So I'm not sure if they do that to allow excess grease out. That really doesn't quite make sense, but that's how they came out of here. That's how the other ones are. So we're just gonna go with that, I suppose. So I'm gonna use a socket to drive that down in there. That one looks like it's gonna be a little too big. Use a little bit smaller one. Just kind of drive this around in here as evenly as we can. Like this side over here might be just a touch high yet. There you go. That's in there about as evenly as I'm going to get it, I guess. And then from there, they had this piece on there, which we're going to need to clean that, but that basically just sits in there and kind of pushes into the seal. So maybe that's why it doesn't matter so much, the way they have it on there. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not really sure. But that's the way they seem to want it, so I don't know. Clean this up here a little bit. Okay. Yeah, and from there, this cap would then simply just pop into place back there. Like that. Just like that. Yeah, there we go. Okay, then for the inside, there's this little spacer piece. Make sure we get the old grease out of here. It's the other thing, when you're doing this kind of work, you want to make sure you get all the old grease and dirt off of it as best as you can, because when a bearing goes like it did, you'll have a bunch of fine metal particles, and it's very important to make sure you get them out of there and as clean as you feel like you can. I'll tell you one thing, brake cleaner will find every cut you got. Sheesh. Okay. I feel like that's as clean as I'm going to get that. So then this simply just drops down in here. Kind of acts like a little spacer. Okay, now we repeat that same process again with our second bearing. Sure it's all down below. About as even as we feel like we can get it. I would call that pretty good. And from here we would slide down this, but I want to make sure we clean off our other spacer here first. And we'll just insert this into that seal like so. There we go. Just gonna reach down in here and move our spacer to center where it should be. Now for our main shaft, since I'd call our spindle pretty well complete. See if we can't clean this up here a little bit. Try to get this a little nicer looking. right here's our grease hole. So this is a hollow bolt or shaft, whatever you want to call it. So we got a grease fitting up here. Squirts grease down and it comes out there. So I'm actually on the floor here real quick, just going to plug it into my grease gun and verify that it does work. Which it does. You can see fresh grease came out of there. So while we're here, we might as well make sure it's not clogged, so which it is not. Okay. That all looks good. Our pulley looks good. Give it just a little bit of wire brushing here a little bit. Particularly on the mounting surface areas, because as we know, we like clean mounting areas. We like them to be clean. Okay. Yeah, it's clean. Alright, now take our bolt. I'm going to put just a light coat of grease on this to help it slide through the seals. And through the entire apparatus. There we go. Alright. So we get this side up. Goes there. Take that. And we just slide this all the way down through. Just like that. There we go. I don't want grease on the threads, so I'm going to wash the threads off with some cleaner in order to get proper torque. We want those threads as free as a lubrication as we can, otherwise we can over torque it. But there we go. There's our rebuilt spindle. And we should be ready to throw this back on the deck itself. So I think let's transfer over there to that. So I am going to put a little bit of Loctite on these just to ensure nothing backs out. I'm only going to use blue, so it won't be too terrible to get undone should we need to. But this will at least help keep things in place for the moment. Okay. So we got our bottom one there. There's the one we repaired. So I ended up getting 2 new bolts, reused one, and then of course one we fixed. 2 of them broke, and which of course the one we repaired, but then it never really seem to, the one bolt still seemed to be in kind of some sad shape, so I just went ahead and got 2 new bolts, and figured it'd just be better that way. Gonna take it easy on our repair here. Don't want to cross thread it, and we want to make sure that our Heli-Coil doesn't spin. We did Loctite it, but it is possible. There we go. Looks like it's going to be alright, which is great news. I'll just finish these up by hand. I don't want to strip anything out or do the repair all over again on any of these other ones. So we'll just finish them up by hand. I'll let that Loctite do what it's supposed to do there. Yeah. Okay. Pretty happy with that. Check our repaired one more time. Yeah, it's tight. Okay. Everything's back together and on there. So I guess where we have to go from here is clean the deck up and get our blade sharpened. Just so we don't lose our shaft for the moment. I'm going to put the nut back on so it can't fall out now that it's nice and greased. We'll set our deck back down like so. Okay, I guess from here we just got to sharpen some blades up. Alright, we went through and taken our wire wheel and got a bunch of that rust and paint off of there, old grass and stuff. So we're just going to go through and touch these up. These really look pretty good, to be honest, and they really don't need much attention kind of from what I'm seeing. So we're just going to go through and kind of lightly put an edge on, make sure they're balanced up, and then they can be assembled from there, really. pretty surprised. It's actually dead on balanced right off the bat. Certainly doesn't happen like that every time. It might be just a touch heavier on this side, perhaps. Yeah, I'd call that pretty well balanced. Got a nice, decent edge on there. We don't need this to be razor sharp. We just need it to be a little bit of an edge. And most of our cutting takes place out here, not up here. So got that worked down to about how I'd like to see it. Another one about perfect right on the first try. Well, that's great. That to me would indicate that if these were sharpened before, they've been sharpened pretty well uniformly and decent, which is really good. Of course, as we're going as well, you want to remember that you check for bends or any kind of damage to the blade, that they're not bent. Just want to make sure that the overall condition of them is good. It's important to keep in mind with mower blades that you don't need them razor sharp. You want them to have a point, but you don't want them to be razor sharp. And the reason why is a razor sharp cuts grass super great, but it doesn't have a very long lifespan. So the more pointy that edge is, the quicker it's going to want to wear off. Or the quicker that say like a little twig or a little stick in the grass will cause a very hard nick on it a lot quicker than a more of a wedge point. So we don't need it razor sharp. We don't need it to cut paper unless that's, you know, what the goals you're after. You generally want a little bit softer of an edge. Think of it more of like a utility knife versus a fillet knife. You don't want a fillet knife doing this kind of work. You know, you hit things and so on, and you'll dull it really quick. Whereas a utility knife, it's made to cut boxes, and it's, you know, made to cut and keep cutting in those conditions. So that's what we want here. So we don't want a razor edge, but we want a sharp edge. So I'm pretty happy with those results. I think we're pretty well ready to get these stuck back on the machine. One of the things I do want to make sure we do is get our nuts and washers cleaned up from rust. So we're just going to hit that here with the wire wheel quick. Make sure they're cleaned up. We like clean mating surfaces. That's one thing we really like around here. When it comes to blades, that's no exception. Last thing we need is for blades to go flying off into people's legs. Alright. This one here is pretty clean. It's so well greased, we're about ready to lose it here too, actually. So we're just gonna continue right along. Yep. course, that being the one we rebuilt, it's nice and well lubricated. It wants to fall right out the other side, so we're just gonna move right along off of that. Got a little bit of string wrapped around that one. According to the service manual, we are aiming for between 70 and 90 foot-pounds. So let's see what we can get here. Alright, there's 90 on that one. There's 90. There's 90 on that one. So this one here that we rebuilt's a little stiff. So I'm not sure if we have more to look into on that, or if a little bit of grease will fix that. Try putting a little bit of grease in it and see if we can get that to spin any better. Well, I don't like to see that. It really doesn't seem to be making much of a difference. It's still pretty stiff. Definitely doesn't want to work as well as the other ones do. I'm not quite sure why that would be exactly. Apart from, I could say if the races weren't pressed down the whole way and they were sticking up, but they were pressed down in there as deep as they wanted to go. So let me think about this here for a minute and see what I can come up with. Alright, we have some progress here. So, after some investigation, what I have figured out here from all this is, number one, it was too tight. Our bearings were too tight. And I'm going to assume why that is that I'm just going to assume that some of our aluminum where those races would press into has been worn, and it's allowing the bearings to sit a little closer together. That is what I think is going on. So this spacer here is designed to fit in between those bearings, and you have a ridge right here on the top and the bottom cup, and when you bolt this together, it puts pressure across the center of the bearings to keep everything tight, and that's what spins on there. And what was happening is it was the bearings are too close, that when I went to tighten this, it was smushing everything in those races way too tight. So it could have been the races weren't seated, but I know that's not the case. So my first thought went to this shaft. Now, I knew this shaft was a little bit bent, but I didn't really think it would matter too much. So I didn't really film any of this because I was kind of concentrated on this and doing some trial and error, to be honest with you, and so I kind of got it figured out. So work with me here as I do my little monologue on this to kind of rehash. But essentially what I did is I used the tools that I had and was able to find the center portion of the hump on this shaft, which I have marked right there with the red. When I found that center portion, I was able to prop up both sides of this shaft and gently use my bearing press a 20-ton press to make this shaft straight again. It's not perfect, but I would say it's 90-some% better than what it was, which is actually really great for the amount of tooling that I have to work with. Ideally, I would have needed some more machinist type tools, but I just don't have access to those, so I had to use what I got. And it actually gave some really good results. Now you could say, why not buy a new shaft? They don't make them anymore. Cub Cadet discontinued these shafts. They are not available anymore. I could make something like this. I could go to a machine shop, get a bolt of this diameter, drill it out to do this grease hole. We could definitely make something like this if we really had to, but I was really hoping we weren't going to have to. And I think we're going to be able to squeak by with this. So I was able to straighten the shaft out as best I could, and that made things a whole lot better, but we were still really tight in here. So I started experimenting with some spacers. And what I did is I just went around and used my Dremel and cut off a little end to the inner bearing cup, one of the old inner bearing cups. They had a little, I be able to show it very well in here, but they had like a little perfectly machined ring around there where the bearings would roll. So I was able to use that as a straight line and able to really carefully use my Dremel, a really thin blade on my Dremel, and cut out a 2mm thick spacer, which is what you see right here. So I installed that with the center bushing, and that pushed away our bearings. Now it ended up being too loose. So I had to experiment more. So I took this on some sandpaper and a really flat bench, and did circles with it, both sides to keep it flat. And I was able to take about 1mm off of this spacer. Now that made it a lot better, but still not good enough. So what I opted to do instead, these spacers are still available through Cub Cadet, and they're not that expensive. So I guess to rehash this too, you might ask yourself, well, maybe this spacer was worn, right? Maybe I just needed a new spacer. Well, according to Cub Cadet's measurements that I could find, but this still, even using my caliper, was coming to be the correct measurement based on Cub Cadet's measurements that they give for the spacer. So I don't really feel confident that this was actually the problem, that it was smushed or worn. It could have been a little bit, but I don't think it was enough based on the amount of spacer that we needed to fix this problem. So it was still a little bit too much with the bearing spacer piece that I have here, this 2mm piece. So instead of trying to hold this on a sander and just mess around with it, I ended up taking this side and I took about a good strong millimeter off of here. All in all, I would say a really good strong millimeter, probably like 1.5 millimeters off of this, because I knew that I can replace this easy enough. I wasn't worried about it. The local supplier has them in stock. If I ruined this, I wasn't that concerned. But it was a whole lot easier to ruin this and save this than mess around with that. And to be honest, this is even something I can make super easy. It's yeah, I can make this again really easy myself. So I wasn't very worried about it. But I just did have to be kind of careful about what I was doing, because of course a lot of these parts are discontinued, and the moment I ruin them, it's about time for really expensive machiners to visit or the mower deck scrap. So it was a little bit of touch and go here, hence why I didn't film it. Just trying to figure things out and the best I could. So what I got it to a place here where I think I have it fixed. It spins a whole lot easier, and I'm pretty happy with how everything feels. So let's go ahead and just reassemble this here kind of together. So we'll put our spacer, our main OEM spacer, down in there, and then we're going to use our little 2mm spacer on top of that, or a shim, I guess, if you want to call it. And try to get some of this grease out of here, where that seal's gonna go. Alright, drop our bearing down in there. And I was very carefully able to pull our seal out, so I'm not worried about it. It actually popped out really easy, so we're going to be able to reuse this. I generally don't like to do that, but this one came out really well. I feel really good about it. I don't see an issue. So we're gonna roll with it. One thing I was reading up on is somebody was on one of the small and repair sites that I'm a part of. I noticed that people were saying when you put this back together that you're supposed to put one with the seal going the correct direction. So remember, we have a couple on this side, and that's supposed to hold the grease, and when the grease hits it, it spreads out the seal to get a grip on your shaft so the grease doesn't shoot through. Well, Cub Cadet, or at least the OEM ones that came off of here, they were on what I would call backwards. And apparently, from what people were saying, which makes sense to me, you're supposed to put one on backwards and one on the right way. So it seemed like the overall suggestion was the one on the top you put on the right way, so that way it fills the grease up in your spindle, but it doesn't push out the top. Now, these spindles are not designed to hold hydraulic pressure, so the grease does have to come out from somewhere, and it seemed like the general consensus was keep the one on the bottom reversed, so that way the grease can squeeze out through the bottom should you put too much in there. So we're going to put that to good use here. That sounds reasonable to me. And if you guys know anything different, certainly leave me a comment. But that's the best way I understand that. That makes sense to me. So we're going to put this seal in the correct way. So we got everything in here. We got our little spacer, our little shim that we made, our OEM shim that we sanded down, our bearing, and we're just going to gently tap our seal in here. Make sure we got it even and below the surface, which we do. Okay, we got our top shim plate here. Make sure all of the dirt's off of this. And we should be ready to insert this right down through there. Okay, let me reposition the camera and get this deck flipped over a different way. And I think we can take a peek and see what we got from the bottom side. Just as we always do, we're going to clean off the grease on here that pulled through. We don't want too much lubrication on that bolt and nut. Okay. Now would be our washer. That would be our mower blade. And then it would be our nut. So the shim that I did here simply changed the bearing tension. It didn't change the shaft length. The blades still match up, and we still got enough here to play with on the end. So I didn't change the length of the shaft or anything about the shaft in that way. The only thing I did was helped with the tension on those bearings. Okay, so we're going somewhere between 70. Alright, that was pretty sure that was about 85, 90 foot-pounds. So we're aiming for between 70 and 90, the book says. So just double check. Yep. It's a hefty 90. Okay, and you'll see, check that out. Isn't that cool? And our tension, there's very little movement there at all. There's no more movement than any of the rest. I'm swinging around this side so you can see. There's no side-to-side play or wobble at all, but it spins the way it should, and it's quiet now. So that was more of a process than I kind of expected to do, to be completely honest, but I would call that fixed. With our spindle fixed, it is time to move onwards. We did put grease in that. As you can see here, we got some leaking out the bottom. So we got grease in this. She still spins real nice, just as good as all their other ones. And so from here, it's time to kind of wrap up maintenance on this unit here, I believe. So I'm going to go around to all the deck wheels, and the front two, I guess there only is one because the one is missing, but the front one up there has a grease fitting on it. These back here do not. So see if we can break some more bolts and pop these off of here. And we're just going to do the traditional style of greasing things up by hand. With some bearing grease. Butter smooth, butter smooth. All right, let's hop over and do the other side. Butter smooth there too. All right, let's hop front and do the two on the front next. This one here has a grease fitting on it, but I have no idea how you get in there to get to it, to be completely honest with you. So I think our best bet is just to pop this one off and do it the same way as we did all the rest of them. Nice brass bushing there. Ooh, looks a little bit rusty. Let's actually hit this with the wire wheel first. I'd say no wonder that one was a little bit squeaky. Alright, and then we'll just use our bearing grease here again. We'll just do it manually. Nice and smushed up on there. Yeah, right there's the grease fitting, but they got the thing pointed right into the wheel. I don't know what kind of specialty tools they think we have around this here place, but I suppose I could use a little needle on the end, but I'm not doing all that for this. This will work just fine right here. So work just fine indeed. There are two things if you open, they seem to get everywhere, and that's grease and never sees. Basically, before you know it, it's absolutely everywhere. Alright, no more squeaky. It's a good thing. So here we got a pin holding this one in. Pull him out. Give him the same treatment as we did that bolt. Alright, there we go. All the wheels are greased. I think everything is greased at this point, I would say. Got all of our wheels, got all of our spindles. Need to clean this deck out. I'd like to clean the bottom of this deck out a little bit from all the grass that's still in here. I know we got a broken bolt to fix yet, and the belt to put back on. So I guess let's jump into getting the grass out from under the deck, and then we'll flip it over, and hopefully that'll be the last time we gotta flip it over then. About as good as we're gonna get it here, I think. A little bit deceiving here in a way. There's a lot of rusty spots, and I don't want to chisel too hard, or I'm a little afraid we might poke through some of these, but I think overall it's cleaner than it was, so I'm gonna be happy with that. I had almost completely forgotten about our idler pulley. I almost completely forgot about it. Let's see how it's going to go here. Let's give it a shot. Tighten her down and see what we got here. Well, she spins pretty good. Pretty straight, too. Real quiet. I think we're just going to send it down the road here with this. We'll try it out here around the house here first before we give it back to the customer, but I don't see a reason why that won't work at all. I really don't. Yeah, I like that. I like that pretty good. Okay, so we had a broken bolt over here. So we're going to attempt to drill that out. And in the meantime, I'm just going to send my tap down through these holes just to kind of clear these out from any debris. Quarter 20 is what these are. There we go. Some tight quarters here. We got it. Go down through. Okay. Now let's see if we can't get this broken piece drilled out of here. Put a little bit of Loctite on this, and I think we'll have ourselves a little bit of a winner. There we go. Take our tab punch and punch that tab out. There we go. All right, we'll let that set up. In the meantime, let's get this deck belt on here. We'll let that set up there for a little bit. Got our belt from Napa. Let's see if we can remember how this goes. So we definitely go up there like that. Go over here like that. Now, did we go behind here or did we go over there? I think we went. Let me look at the chart. I see what we got going on. So this has to go behind there. So let's try something like this. And can we manage to pull that belt over this way? I don't know if we'll be able to do that. Yeah, it's pretty tight. Get a little bit of lube up under there will probably help, huh? Hit it with some of our liquid wrench. Let that get all nice and happy under there. Whoops, that's not what we wanted. There, we got some movement. Okay. Let's see. Can we manage to pull it back now? Get this. Yep. There we go. Oh. Almost at. There we go. There we got it. All right. All looks happy there, I think. Center pulley seems to be taking it just fine. Yeah. Well, that's good. Okay. And I guess our second belt goes on top of that. So here we got our main drive belt. And that's going to go here, here, and then it'll eventually, of course, go up to the tractor side of it. So now, I think we should be ready to put our protective plate cover back on, since we got our belts under there. So let's grab the hardware for that. Alright, got all three in here. That's good. We're not going to go very tight because we don't need to strip anything out. There we go. Held in there nice and strong. Alright, and with that, I would say that pretty well concludes this mower deck. I can't think of anything else that we haven't looked at or gone over. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on those pins there once we go to put it back on the mower. But otherwise, everything else has been greased and gone over, rebuilt if needed. I would say this mower deck is about as good as it's gonna get for the miles that it has on it. But it should last for a while yet anyway, I would guess. Don't see anything majorly alarming right off. So I guess we're going to end this here. This is part one. This has been a several day endeavor. It'll be, of course, one whole video for you guys, but this has been quite the project. This was quite the undertaking. I didn't film everything. Kind of gave you guys some little snippets or monologues to make up for what I didn't film. But behind the scenes, this was a real project. So I'm happy that it's done. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. Learned some things about rebuilding the spindles and replacing the bearings on the idler pulley. It's something I've never tried before. It seemed like that you would be able to do such a thing, but in this case it actually did work out. So pretty cool about that. Hopefully you guys learned something too, and hopefully you had fun watching, if nothing else. Speaking of that though, I do appreciate you watching and stopping by. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, something you learned, or maybe you did something here before and could give me a suggestion of how to do it better next time, be sure to drop a comment down below. I love reading your comments. Hit that like button. It does help out the channel quite a bit. And if you like what you see and want to see more, well, we got plenty more in store. We got an entire part 2 of the tractor coming in next, and I think that that might be just as fun as this was. There's some interesting things going on with that machine, and if it's anything like this, I think we're in for a ride. So make sure you subscribe if you like what you see, if you're not subscribed, so that you don't miss any future content. And with that being said, I am going to do a very needed shop cleanup, and we'll see about getting the tractor in here next, and we'll get started on part 2. So I will see you guys in the next one.